Somewhere along the way, something about you triggered attention of a different kind. Not praise, not applause. Scrutiny, quiet phones, closed rooms. People whose job is to observe without being observed. They didn't just ask questions. They paid for answers, and they didn't do it randomly. Let's be clear about something before your mind runs wild. This isn't about fantasy or exaggeration. This is about patterns, about systems, about how power reacts when something moves outside expectation. You didn't announce growth. You didn't declare ambition. You simply adjusted your behavior. And that was enough. Because when someone stops acting according to the script, the people who wrote the script feel exposed. You became an irregularity, a variable, and variables are always investigated. Here's what most people never understand. Attention doesn't come from noise. Noise is common. Silence with direction is rare. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped justifying your decisions. You stopped reacting emotionally to every little trigger placed in front of you. That kind of restraint makes others uncomfortable because they can't read you. And when people can't read you, they can't predict you. When they can't predict you, they feel unsafe. You didn't change who you were. You changed how you moved. You became efficient, focused, detached from unnecessary drama. You delivered without asking to be applauded. You corrected mistakes without blaming anyone. You kept your head down, but your standards high. That combination is unsettling because it exposes how much of the environment depends on chaos, validation, and control. Your calm became a mirror, and not everyone likes what they see reflected back. Understand this clearly. Investigations don't start because someone is reckless. They start because someone is disciplined. Because discipline removes dependency. And dependency is how systems maintain order. The moment you stop needing approval, you reduce their leverage over you. That's when curiosity turned into concern. Who trained them? Who are they aligned with? What do they know that we don't? Those questions don't come from admiration. They come from fear. No. Most people chase attention thinking it equals power. You didn't. You realized power is quiet. It's consistent. It's knowing when to speak and when silence does more damage than words. You listened more than you talked. You observed dynamics instead of participating in them. While others performed for recognition, you gathered information. That alone separates you. Because performers are replaceable, observers with discipline are not. Here's the part that makes people uneasy. You didn't rush. You didn't scramble. You didn't show desperation. You operated as if time was on your side. And nothing alarms fragile structures more than someone who isn't in a hurry. Because urgency is easy to manipulate. Calm patience is not. When someone isn't reactive, they can't be rushed into making mistakes. And that's when monitoring begins. Let's talk about the real reason private investigators get involved. It's not about proving guilt. It's about assessing risk, measuring potential, asking whether this person could disrupt the balance later. You didn't break rules. You made rules look unnecessary. You showed that self-control can exist without supervision, that accountability can exist without threats. And that kind of independence raises red flags for anyone who relies on control to stay relevant. If you felt it, trust that feeling. The odd pauses when you enter a room, the questions that sound casual but feel calculated, the sudden interest in your past, your habits, your connections. That's not a coincidence. That's an assessment. You quietly outgrew the role assigned to you. And when growth happens without permission, it unsettles those who benefit from keeping others small. This is only the beginning. Because there are 3 specific things about you that triggered this reaction. 3 shifts that changed how you're perceived without you ever saying a word. And once you understand them, you'll realize this was never about fear. It was about recognition. Not who you claim to be, but of who you are becoming. Now we can talk about the first thing, because this is where it truly began. It didn't start when you achieved more, or when results showed up. It started when you withdrew. You stopped broadcasting your inner world. You stopped narrating every struggle, every plan, every emotion. That silence wasn't emptiness. It was containment. You learned to hold your thoughts instead of handing them out freely. And when people lost access to your inner reactions, they lost control. That loss didn't make them angry at first. It made them curious. People are comfortable when they know how to read you, when they can predict your reactions and pull information from you without effort. You ended that comfort quietly, not with confrontation, not with distance, with selectivity. You chose when to speak and when to remain still, and that shift made you opaque. Once you became difficult to read, conversation turned into observation. When answers disappear, watching replaces asking. The second thing unsettled them even more. And this one was impossible to ignore. You became consistent. Not intense for a short burst, not disciplined only when motivated, but steady, reliable, calm in your effort. You showed up the same way whether anyone noticed or not. That kind of consistency doesn't come from pressure. It comes from standards. And systems built on supervision don't trust people who regulate themselves. No. Think carefully about why that matters. Someone who needs reminders is manageable. Someone who needs praise is predictable. But someone who improves without being pushed cannot be rushed, distracted, or easily redirected. You didn't chase titles. You didn't plead for recognition. You kept refining your work quietly, and quiet refinement exposes how much of the environment depends on urgency, competition, and noise to survive. The third thing is the one nobody admits openly, yet everyone feels. You stopped competing. You didn't announce it. You didn't disengage dramatically. You simply stopped measuring yourself against others. No comparisons, no visible jealousy, no need to prove anything. That absence is unsettling because competition keeps people reactive and distracted. When you opt out, your focus sharpens, and focused individuals are difficult to manipulate. When someone doesn't compete, observers start asking deeper questions. What are they building? Why aren't they rushing? What do they see that we don't? Because competition keeps attention scattered. Non-competitive focus suggests long-term thinking, and long-term thinkers rarely move without intention. That's when background checks begin. Not to accuse, but to calculate your trajectory. Notice something important here. None of these changes were loud. None were aggressive. None broke rules. They were internal shifts. And internal shifts are harder to control than visible actions. You didn't rebel. You detached. And detachment weakens invisible control structures more than confrontation ever could. That's why the attention felt strange. Not hostile, not friendly, just watchful. They weren't searching for mistakes. They were studying patterns, trying to predict where you might be years from now, trying to decide whether you would remain manageable or become influential. Because influence doesn't start with followers. It starts with self-discipline. Understand this clearly. Being investigated doesn't mean you did something wrong. It means you did something right in a system that prefers dependency. You showed that progress can happen without constant oversight, that growth doesn't require permission, and once that possibility is demonstrated, it unsettles those who benefit from control. So don't shrink now. Don't over-explain. Don't perform innocence. That would undo the very shifts that brought you here. Stay precise. Stay observant. Stay controlled. Not from fear, from understanding. Because once you know why attention found you, you stop being intimidated by it. This isn't about paranoia. It's about intention. You've already crossed a threshold quietly. You've already signaled something different, and now the only real decision left is whether you continue evolving with discipline or retreat into predictability to make others comfortable. Now comes the part that separates people who survive attention from people who collapse under it. What you do after being noticed matters more than what got you noticed in the first place. This is where most people make the mistake. They panic. They rush to explain. They soften their edges to appear harmless. That instinct is natural, and it is dangerous, because the moment you try to look smaller, you confirm that you were never in control to begin with. The first thing you must do is resist the urge to perform. No sudden changes, no exaggerated politeness, no dramatic displays of loyalty or innocence. Performance signals fear, and fear invites pressure. Instead, remain consistent. The same tone, the same pace, the same standards. Consistency is stabilizing. It tells observers that what they're seeing isn't a phase, it's a baseline. And baselines are respected far more than reactions. Next, tighten your boundaries without announcing them. This is subtle. You don't need walls. You need filters. Speak less about your plans. Share outcomes, not processes. Let people see results without seeing the machinery behind them. When access decreases calmly, curiosity fades, because there's nothing emotional to grab onto. You're not hiding. You're simply not volunteering. And that distinction matters. At the same time, sharpen your awareness, not suspicion, awareness. Pay attention to patterns, not individuals. Who ask questions when they ask them? What information seems to circulate? You're not hunting threats. You're reading the environment. This isn't about defense. It's about positioning. The more accurately you understand the terrain, the less reactive you need to be. Here's something few people are told. Attention is a test. Not of your innocence, of your discipline. Investigations lose interest in people who remain boring under pressure. Calm confuses systems that expect emotional leakage. When nothing leaks, there's nothing to exploit. Your job isn't to impress, it's to remain neutral while continuing to progress. Another critical move is patience. Do not accelerate to prove momentum. Do not slow down to appear safe. Maintain your rhythm. Time reveals intent more clearly than explanation ever could. Those watching are trying to determine whether you burn fast or build steadily. Let time answer for you. Quiet persistence is exhausting for observers who rely on quick conclusions. Also understand this. You don't need to confront anything directly. Confrontation creates stories. Stories create noise. Noise creates opportunity for misinterpretation. Silence paired with competence leaves no narrative to twist. When there's nothing dramatic to report, attention naturally shifts elsewhere. There is a difference between shrinking and refining. You are not asked to disappear. You are asked to become precise. Fewer words, cleaner actions, clearer priorities. Precision makes you harder to mislabel. Vague people are easy to define for others. Precise people define themselves through behavior. And here's the final truth of this stage. Being watched means you've outgrown something. Comfort, roles, expectations. This isn't punishment. It's transition. You've moved from being background noise to being a data point. And data points either get dismissed or taken seriously. Which outcome happens depends on how controlled you remain under observation. So continue forward, calmly, quietly, intentionally. Let your discipline speak when you don't. Let your consistency replace explanation. Because the moment you stop trying to manage perception, perception loses its grip on you. This is where the pressure thins out. Not because attention disappears overnight, but because you change how it affects you. Most people believe relief comes when eyes turn away. That's wrong. Relief comes when observation no longer alters your behavior. The moment you stop reacting internally, the situation loses weight, and weightless things don't stay suspended for long. Now you enter a quieter phase. Not silence, but depth. You stop measuring your days by who noticed and who didn't. You measure them by alignment, by whether your actions matched your standards. This shift is subtle, but it changes everything. Because once your internal approval replaces external response, attention has nowhere to attach. There's nothing to pull, nothing to provoke. Here's something important to understand. Observers are not looking for perfection. They're looking for cracks, emotional leaks, inconsistencies, moments where pressure causes deviation. When none appear, interest fades, not dramatically. Gradually, like a conversation that runs out of questions. Calm endurance is boring to those who expect spectacle. This is also where many people self-sabotage without realizing it. They grow proud of being watched. They hint at it. They perform mystery. That reactivates curiosity instantly. Don't do that. There is no reward for appearing significant. Significance is proven by outcomes, not attention. When you treat observation as irrelevant, it becomes irrelevant. Another shift happens here, and it's critical. You begin to see clearly who thrived on your previous predictability. Who benefited when you were reactive, available, eager. Not with resentment, with clarity. This awareness isn't meant to isolate you. It's meant to refine your circles. Fewer expectations, cleaner interactions, less emotional labor, wasted on proving yourself. Your focus now must move forward, not outward. Build skills that compound quietly. Strengthen habits that don't require applause. Invest in systems that function whether anyone is watching or not. When progress becomes internalized, it no longer triggers alarms because it doesn't depend on visibility. It depends on structure. No. Here's the paradox. The more grounded you become, the less interesting you appear to those who are watching. And that's a success. Because attention was never the goal. Autonomy was. Stability was. The ability to move through environments without being pulled into unnecessary tension. That's the real win.